What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Jessica Jones, Season 3, Episode 4, aka Customer Service is Standing By. Finally, a little bit of a bright spot. Because I am slightly interested to see more about this Gregory Sallinger guy. Just that one scene where he comes into the apartment as Jessica's looting through it and all of that. I don't know, he got me interested. Guy seems like a competent actor. He's seems like he's got a good character to work off of. This serial killer appears kind of like a socio, maybe psychopath. I'm not sure which one. But he seems very intelligent. Like he already figured out who Jessica is. He's already figured out a lot about her. He's already covered his tracks. Went and bought a new knife so they couldn't tie it to him. And we see at the end, at the scene of another murder, he is just completely covered in like this full bodysuit. He's got gloves on, so very clearly somebody who knows how to do a job and not leave any sort of trace behind. The one thing I will say, though, is we do see Jessica recording that conversation. So I do kind of feel like either he found a way to, I guess, get around that, or maybe it's not going to be enough. But it does seem very much like, okay, well, that should be enough, right? Because he talked a lot about the stuff he did. And if anybody listened to that, they would be like, oh, this guy's not right in the head. There's something weird about him. But I'm sure it's not going to be that easy because this is only the fourth episode out of 13. So I'm sure there's going to be something where they can't use it, or, if they do decide to use it, it's like, well, you still broke into his place, so it doesn't really make you look good. But yeah, that's the one bright spot, though. Everything else, still awful. The stuff with Jerry and this Kith woman is just absolutely, oh God, there's just so much wrong with it. Again, like I already talked about how wrong their relationship, the marriage is, and then how wrong Jerry is for what she's doing to their marriage just because she wants this woman to herself where nobody else can have her. And then how wrong Malcolm is for just like, oh yeah, I'll help you. Like, he at least in this episode stood up for himself a little bit more and said, I'm not just going to do all of this awful stuff for you. I'm going to need something in return. So it's kind of a weird feeling because I'm like, well, good, he didn't just do it for nothing. It's not like he's just, oh, okay, you want me to do this? Well, I'll just do it for you. No problem, Mrs. Hogarth. He actually did say, no, I want more because you're asking me to ruin a man's life and ruin a marriage. That's a lot. And he actually does stand up for himself, and it's good to see. But at the same time, he's still willing to go through with it, and I feel like that's not good. So it's kind of a weird feeling with Malcolm right now. But yeah, that whole scene at the concert just, it felt like a waste of time, because what are we seeing in this scene? Nothing really. She starts touching her in the middle of the concert. Okay, cool. What does that tell us? I don't know. And then they get out and they start making out right in the middle of the lobby. I'm like, oh, you're those assholes that just, it's all about you and everybody else can walk around you. I'm like, I hate people like that. I hate people that just, it's all in their own little world. Whether it's they're doing romantic stuff in the middle of the lobby where everybody's having to walk around them now, or people that they're just walking at their own pace and they're taking up like the whole sidewalk. Those people that are so enraptured in their own world that they don't care about anybody else, you're those people, and those people are assholes, and I hate those people. So you're making me hate these characters more, and I didn't think that was possible. And by the way, the fact that they went to a concert where they were playing Claire de Lune by Debussy, no. And the only reason I say that is because there's only one thing that song will make me think of, and that is Don Gunropa V3, freaking Kaede playing that song for Sweet. She is so sweet. Touch my heart. Can't believe they would use that song and just defile that song. Anyways, a little bit of a nerd break. Back to the crap. Yeah, so we see more about Eric in this one. He does say that he has like a sense of when there's darkness in people. I don't know. Again, I thought there was something different about him because of the way he was just at the bar, and he's like, I bet you that guy's gonna cut his hand open on the glass, and then he did. I'm like, oh, can he like see a few seconds into the future or something? Can he get a sense when somebody's about to do something dumb? But no, it's just his superpower is he can sense darkness in people. And that's it. And I call it bullshit because he doesn't sense anything from Jessica, which is a lie. And he didn't sense anything from Trish at the door, which is also a lie. So, yeah, no, his power is bullshit. Because if he really could sense darkness in any person, there would be a lot coming off of both of those shallow, evil people. If he met Jerry Hogarth and he said there's no darkness coming from her, I would know for a fact that he's lying. So, but again, it's just all so vague. It's like, well, how can you sense it? What gave you this power? How exactly does it work? Can you only sense when somebody's doing something evil and underhanded? Or is it just as simple as like, oh, well, that person's cheating on their spouse. Can you sense that? Or is it only, no, this person's doing something truly evil, like what the one guy was doing, or what the lady when they're, ripping off of their pension funds. Like, why can you sense that, but you can't sense other things, like what Trish is doing, the vigilantism. I mean, that's technically, it's against the law, but you can't sense that in her. I don't know. It's very vague. It's very up in the air, and I don't feel like they're going to explain it. I feel like it's just going to be left up in the air, and because of that, I hate it. Again, I feel like it would have been much more interesting if he had a power that was more defined, and if we had some sense of like, well, where did you get this power? But no, they're just probably going to brush it all under the rug. We're not going to see him for a few episodes, and that'll be that. He might die at some point, and we'll never find out how did he have this power. No clue. One thing I will say, this is the second Netflix Marvel show now that's done this, where they have some guy that they go find. Because Punisher Season 2 did the same thing, where they randomly track down this guy, and then just all of a sudden, like, oh, crap, he's, like, filming kids. This is a pedophile. And then in Punisher, pretty much left him for dead, and in this one, they got the guy arrested. I find it kind of interesting, because there's a lot of rumors about stuff going on in Hollywood, and yet this is Hollywood, and they're showing it like it's a bad thing. I'm like, oh, it's kind of interesting, like the pot calling the kettle black, maybe. I'm not saying anybody in the show specifically or in Punisher specifically are involved in stuff like that, but there have been issues with it recently, and there's trials going on right now about that. So just kind of interesting how they're showing it in two of these shows now for the Marvel Netflix series. But yeah, I mean, all in all, the only interesting thing in this is this Sallinger guy. Like, I want to know more about him. Is he just a straight serial killer? How smart is he? Is he like genius level smart, or is he just intelligent and he knows how to be one step ahead? I don't know. I mean, he seems like he's going to be the main bad guy for the season. Like, that's kind of the feeling I'm getting, because this is now 4 episodes in. Typically around the 4th episode is when the main plot for the season gets going. But also, last season for Jessica Jones, it was really hard to nail down a main plot. There was no real bad guy for the season. It was just kind of a discovering of the company that gave Jessica and her mom their powers, and then Jessica reuniting with her mom while Trish is jealous of her powers, and Jerry's dealing with ALS and this girl that tried to steal all of her money. That was it. Like, there was no real main plot. In this one, we at least have, okay, here's a bad guy that you have to stop, and he's an evil sociopath serial killer. Go take him down, because he's going to be smart and cover his tracks, and you got to find a way. I like that. That's more interesting. It's more concise. It's more like I know what's going on. And because Jessica is not just a superhero, she's also supposed to be a private investigator, it makes sense for her to take on something like this where she has to prove that he's guilty, even though he's doing a very good job of covering his tracks. It's much more focused on what she's good at outside of just her superpowers. So I do kind of like that, because very rarely do you see, even though they call Batman like the world's greatest detective, it's not often you see him taking on mysteries. Most of the time, it's just finding out the bad guy's plan, trying to stop it, and then beating him up at the end. They don't really tackle that detective part very much. So I'm glad that it seems like this season we're going to get a bit more of that investigator side of Jessica and trying to solve this case of she already knows who did it, but she's got to find a way to prove he did it and find the evidence that proves he did it. And I like that a bit more for her, especially compared to season 2. So, but anyways, that's the first of these 3. On to the next one. See you there. And now episode 5, I Wish. So I realized something near the end of this episode. I think it's just mainly the writing team to blame. I mean, really, when I think about it, what are my big issues with the show? 1, the characters are just the worst. And 2, it's just not a fun time. And the more that I thought about it, the more I'm like, that's down to writing. And I think what really helped me see that is just listening to some of the dialogue at the end of this episode. I really feel like it helped solidify the writing for this show is not good. At least for this season and probably for last season as well. I just don't think they got good writers. I mean, just think about what they're saying. Trish comes back. For some reason, she hears the banging. She doesn't go back to check on Jess. She just chases after the guy. The guy says, she's got 30 seconds left, which, okay, how does that make sense? Because do you mean like from now, like you heard the first bang and you started counting in your head? You're like, oh, only 30 seconds left. Like, why? All of a sudden you're just like, oh, I know exactly what's going on here. I know that there's a she in the container and that banging is her, and I know that she's only got 30 seconds left. So just out of nowhere, he just randomly shouts that. She still chases after him at first, just to confuse us into thinking, oh, she's not going to go back and save Jessica. And then she goes and saves Jessica, of course. But then she opens the hatch, and Jessica's like, did he get away? She's like, I chose you. So first of all, here's the thing. 1, Trish didn't have to let him go. She could have knocked him out. I mean, she punched him in the face one time, and then instead of like knocking him out or something, she just stood there and watched as he stood up slowly and then gave her the announcement that she's only got 30 seconds left. So it doesn't make sense that she did that. But that line, I chose you. Like, it's such a poorly written line, and I feel bad for the girl playing Trish, honestly, because I feel like she delivered it with as much conviction as she could, but how can you make that line sound convincing in this scenario? Did he get away? I chose you. Okay. It's just so poorly written. And then they're sitting there talking afterwards, and they're having this conversation, and it's so ludicrous to listen to. I mean, really, just this whole, I wish I hadn't killed your mom. I wish she wasn't a mass murderer. We'll get him. That's some tagline. What? What is this nonsense? So yeah, the writing for the show, I think, is really what drives it home as making it a not good show. Because I really do think, I mean, I don't think the actors are really at fault. I think they're trying. I think they are giving it their all. It's not good writing. And the dialogue at the end of this episode is some of the worst that I've seen. Aside from that, talk about Jerry again, because yeah, she split up the marriage between Kith and Peter, and then we see Peter decides his best option, because he seemingly realizes that Jerry is the one responsible for this, which makes sense. I mean, it's a pretty obvious conclusion to come to, which is why Jerry's an idiot for doing it in the first place, because again, she had Kith, she could have had her, but she decided, no, I don't even want her to have a husband. I just want to be the only person in her life. And now she doesn't have her either, because Kith realizes as well. She's like, yeah, you're the one that did this. Stay away from me. It's like, okay, good. She's not dumb. But for Peter, though, there's got to be a better way of handling this whole situation than I'm going to lie about everything that's happened. Yeah, obviously, he had to lie about what he did, but he apologizes for it. He's like, yeah, Jerry's been representing all of these people, these powered people, and they came after me, and then he kills himself. Because that's the next logical step. And maybe Peter's just a complete loon and we just didn't see it before now. But, I mean, from the audience's point of view, you go from, we see him in the one episode where he and Kith are a thing, and they seem fine, and then we see that he's apparently having sex with some of his students, which is not okay, but it's like, okay, but it's not necessarily crazy. And then Jerry exposes all of the awful things he's been doing, stealing the money from, their daughter's, I forget what they had set up, some sort of funds that they set up for their dead daughter. Awful thing that he did. But then all of a sudden he just jumps straight to, I'm gonna show up at her house and I'm gonna take Kith back, and when that doesn't work, you know what? I'm just gonna kill myself and say that Jerry did it to me. It's a little far. It's a little far on the crazy train there. You went from, okay, you seem like a good person, you're not a good person, you're a terrible person, you're a little weird, you're crazy. It just really jumped the shark for me there. And then, of course, all these people are like, oh, we don't want to have their business anymore, so that's happening to her now, which I mean, I guess I'm glad. I'm glad that Jerry's not just, she didn't do all of this and then there's no repercussions. Like, she's getting what she deserves. And honestly, I kind of hope that she just gets lambasted for what she did to this guy, because she deserves it. I mean, what she did was despicable. And yes, he's an awful guy and what he did was bad. However, the way that she handled the situation, exposing him in the way that she did, basically having Malcolm spy on him and all of this, I mean, it's a terrible way to do it. And it cost them their life and their marriage, and she didn't have to do it, but she wanted to because she wanted Kit all to herself. Just nothing but terrible people there. As far as Malcolm's concerned, he's lying to his girlfriend about everything going on because he can't really tell her about what Jerry was having him do. But then he starts looking after Eric's sister, who's a prostitute hooker that apparently, I guess, Sallinger was threatening. And then she's an idiot. She calls her pimp. She's like, hey, I want to work. And so he comes and gets her. And I think I remember talking about there being like an action scene in season 2 where I was like, man, the choreography for that action scene was awful. That was bad. And I think that one probably is worse than this because this was just one punch. But could you at least have made it a convincing punch? At least tried to make it a convincing punch? Because, oh God, it's hard to describe, and it's also past midnight, so I'm exhausted trying to describe this. The best way I can describe it is they almost said, all right, we're going to do a rehearsal take. I want you to step and just pretend to punch him, and then Malcolm, or whatever the actual actor's name is, you fall over. That'll be our rehearsal take. And then they roll it for some reason, and they have the guy do it, and sure enough, he just steps up and does that, and doesn't even come close to his face, like hits here, and then you just see the guy play Malcolm fall off screen like he just got completely thrown across the room. Just the power of that simple was so strong. He just got flattened in an instant. And then they were just like, oh, we were rolling? Oh, that was our last bit of film? All right, we're going to have to go with it. That's what it looks like. It looked like you... Oh, man. Oh. This show has not been known for its action, to be honest. I mean, how can you be? Your main character is just a super powerful person. And that's pretty much all you have to do is just make it look like she's throwing people across the room, make that look convincing. You don't have to worry about choreographing fight scenes. However, I still feel like you should be able to say, all right, let's make this look convincing. Actually have the guy take a swing like he's just tried to knock the guy out and not just... We got rock'em sock'em robots. And then I guess the final thing to talk about is Eric and Sallinger, because we do see a bit more of Eric in this one. Don't really, I don't know how I feel about Eric. Like, he has his moments where he seems like a good character, like a good guy, but then he has his moments where he kind of seems like not that interesting of a character. Like whenever he and Jessica sleep together, I'm just like, okay, well, they're doing that now. And then afterwards, he's like all cocky. He's like, yeah, I can sense whenever I please a woman. I'm just like, okay, dude, now you're just acting like a dick. And then at the end of the episode, Sallinger shows up at his apartment. He starts choking him out. And I don't know if he kills him or if he just knocked him out or whatever, but I don't know. Like, Eric for me is just, right now he's just a character. Like, he's just a guy that's helping out. His power is still a little weird to me. He said apparently he was having the headache around Malcolm. Again, I don't know how that works. Is it because of what Malcolm did to Peter? Like, that's what's causing the headache, so he can sense the bad deed that he did there, costing the man his life? And if so, I mean, Trish has murdered a woman, so has Jessica. So it's like, not murdered a woman, she murdered Kilgrave and another man. But they're both murderers. They both have killed people. Trish nearly murdered another woman, the Sal lady. So what exactly does his headache tell him? Like, they're being very vague on it, so I hope we get a little bit more clarification there. But Sallinger is still an enjoyable villain, seeing him work at the beginning. He's a pretty intimidating guy, and his character is just, for me, it's kind of interesting. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with this serial killer. Like, how are they going to handle him? How are they going to take him down? He does seem like he's not invincible. Like, they're able to tail him pretty easily. I kind of expected him to just, figure out what they were doing, figure out that they had a perch across the street that they were watching him from. But he never really catches on to any of that, and he never really catches on until, obviously, Trish punches him in the face that he was being followed in the first place. Obviously, he has a bunch of things set up to cover his tracks, like the whatever Jessica set off, which pretty clumsy of her to be like, oh god, a human head, I'm gonna freak out, so I set off an obvious trap in here. Don't really get that, but clearly he has countermeasures in place to make sure that his tracks are covered. But it still feels like they're pretty easily duping him, they're pretty easily catching on to him and tracking him and all of this. So he doesn't seem infallible. It just seems like he's doing a good job of making sure his evidence doesn't lead back to him right now. But he does have evidence out there. So I don't know. It's just kind of up in the air right now whether or not he's going to be a good villain. So far he is intriguing at least, so there's that. But as far as whether or not he's going to actually be a good villain to take on for the entirety of the season, kind of hard to say. And it's really feeling like it's not going to be that difficult. But they're probably going to make it difficult because they have to. I swear, if it's Dorothy that makes it more difficult than it has to be, I might have to find the actress and punch her in the face. Be like, I'm sorry, it's not you, it's Dorothy. I have to do it because of Dorothy. But anyways, that's it for this second episode. On to the third one. See you there. And now, episode 6, Sorry Face. So again, start off with the worst part of the episode, which is still Jerry. And yeah, just still her. Still acting like Jerry, still being the worst. And yeah, I mean, I am glad that she's still getting a bit of comeuppance, but it also feels like she's not getting as much as she deserves. And honestly, it still feels like they're treating it as if she's one of the good guys. That we should be rooting for her, that we should feel sorry for her, that things are going wrong. That Kith's son, smacked the bagels out of her hand and then she got hurt. No, good. She deserves all of this. I felt so bad for the kid, honestly. because whoever this kid is, he looked kind of familiar. I probably have seen him in something else. I forgot to look that up before continuing this review. But I mean, did a really good job of making me feel sorry for the kid, because I really did just sympathize with that. I mean, just this woman comes in and ruins your family dynamic, and then she still has the audacity to show up and say, "Oh, well, I brought food. Does that make everything better?" I mean, what? Oh, and then at the end, the sleazy guy showing up, which, my God, talk about heavy-handed with all of the representation of the homosexual agenda. I mean, God, could you be more obvious? Yeah, you told me to come out and I did, and I couldn't be happier. Oh, congratulations. It's who you're sexually attracted to. It's not that big of a deal. They act like it's the biggest decision he's ever made. I can't stand how Hollywood how they handled that. It very rarely is handled well. Ironically, it was handled well in one of the worst Marvel properties to date, in the Eternals. Ironically, it was handled well there because they didn't focus on it. They didn't make it a huge deal. It was just, he had a husband. Phastos had a husband, and that was it. They didn't talk about it. It's just yeah, he has a husband. He's attracted to men. Whoop-de-doo. So, dealing with that, though, just having to see him come in and act like a huge just dick and be like, oh yeah, we're taking Rand and all of this stuff. Again, they're painting him to be the bad guy, but I'm sitting here going, good, Jerry's losing a bit, because she deserves to. Again, after all she did, she deserves to lose a bit, because she was awful, and she is awful. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen to her from here on out, but again, I just kind of hope that she doesn't get a win here. I hope she doesn't end the season on a high note. I hope she ends feeling like she was beaten, feeling like she got what she deserved. I hope she goes to prison for all the shady shit that she's done. Don't think it's going to happen, but that's what I'd like to happen. But aside from that, we also have just... the rest of it is kind of all mixed together because Malcolm is now being drawn into this situation with Sallinger, mainly because he is hanging out with Eric's sister. And I really don't know how to feel about Malcolm right now. Because again, they played on this whole idea of Eric could sense some sort of evil in him, in the last episode. And they talk about it a little bit more, and he doesn't really answer, and it seems like I don't know what's going on with him. He doesn't really know what's going on with him, and then all of a sudden at the end, he's getting a blowjob from Eric's sister because, I don't know, that's just where he is now. He's willing to, not really cheat on his girlfriend, but also he's cheating on his girlfriend because he's allowing this to happen, So, yeah, I don't really know what they're doing with Malcolm right now. They're just kind of turning him into a despicable, terrible person as well. And it's kind of a shame because he was one of the few that wasn't quite there, and now he is there. He's willing to do whatever for Jerry, and yeah, I don't know. Just weird decision for him and his character. Trish and her mom, that whole scene, they tried to play it up as this huge dramatic thing, I'm supposed to feel sorry for them. I do not, because, Dorothy is the worst alongside Jerry, and I don't feel bad for Trish, in all of this. She's still acting like she has the moral high ground somehow, even though she does not. She and Jessica are in the same boat right now. They are trying to do something good and stopping the serial killer, but they're both not really handling it the best. I feel like there's a lot better way to look at it, but yeah, at the end, whenever basically Eric says, I don't want to go to prison because I'll die in there, and Trish just turns to Jessica, don't ever lecture me about not knowing the stakes. What? You really want him to just go die? Basically, I want to say that I took down a serial killer, so you should go sacrifice yourself so that way we can put him in prison, because that way I can say I took down a serial killer. It's so selfish. You want this man to kill himself because you want to look good. You want to feel like you're a hero. That's not why heroes do it. I mean, my God, look at Endgame. I know this came out before Endgame, but look at Endgame. Literally, who was it? I don't remember who it was now. But somebody was like, I'll sacrifice myself. Or no, it wasn't Endgame, it was Infinity War. Vision was talking about sacrificing himself so that way Thanos, didn't get the Soul Stone or the Mind Stone. And Captain America says, we don't trade lives. Because that's a hero's mindset. You're not going to sacrifice somebody just to save the day. Just to say, we stopped the bad guy. You don't sacrifice people like that. But Trish was just like, yeah, sure, send him to prison so he'll die, being surrounded by all the evil there. That's fine. That's okay. At least I'll have put a serial killer away. I helped with that. It'll make me look good. I'll put that on my little resume, on my superhero resume, and I'll send it out to people and be like, hey, know that serial killer? I took him down. It was me. Sure, the guy that went to prison and died in there, he also helped with his witness, but I'm the one that did it. Hey. So Trish is the worst as well. She just, I don't know, she's kind of insufferable. There are better moments between her and Jessica right now, but she still, as a character, is just written so shallow. It's just frustrating at times to deal with her. As far as Jessica's concerned, she's just, I don't really know what she sees in Eric. Like, I'm not really a good judge of character, or not judge of character, judge of attractiveness when it comes to guys. I really don't, like, when I look at a guy, it's hard for me to be like, yes, he's attractive, or no, he's not attractive. I don't know, how most girls see attractiveness in guys. So I can't say whether or not Eric's attractive. He seems like the typical guy that most girls find attractive. So maybe that has something to do with it, but it really just feels like she's just instantly fallen for this guy out of nothing. So much so that she's like just willing to, I don't know, like she's so focused on saving him, and she's like really upset that he could be hurt. And I don't know, it feels very quick for this, especially because of the fact that she didn't want to be with Oscar because he was a good guy, and it seemed like he wanted something more long term. So now all of a sudden the fact that she's just willing to go with Eric just out of nowhere, and she's so in love with him, and I'm like, okay, I mean, it's weird, it's odd, but I guess it gives her motivation to want to go find him before Sallinger kills him. But yeah, I don't know, it's a weird feeling that all of a sudden she's just so infatuated with him. But finally, the really good stuff in this episode is obviously the Sallinger stuff, and basically that whole scene with him, like all of the scenes really with him and Eric in that old abandoned restaurant. I mean, really intriguing, and I want to know more about his character. Like, they're doing a really good job in writing him in a way that kind of makes me wonder, why is he doing all this? And we get a little bit of his backstory. We find out about his dad thinking his brother is more important than him, and basically telling him when his brother died, like, I wish it had been you instead. A very, very Boromir-Faramir type of relationship with his brother. So, yeah, it's very interesting to see that he kind of probably more of a, I think it's sociopath is the one that is turned that way because of their environment. I think psychopath is born that way, like it's a mental disability that turns them into a killer. So I think sociopath is the one where he was born and bred because of his father's, I guess, the way he raised him and everything. So very intriguing there, and I hope we get a little bit more on that. But we also see his hatred of any superpowered people because he feels like they're cheaters. He got to where he is. He got to all of the bachelors and all of the degrees that he has, all of the stuff that he's done, serial killer wise. He did all of that through hard work, through sheer effort to get to where he is. Where he looks at people like Jessica, Trish, and he finds out later Eric, and he sees all of them as cheaters. He's like, no, you didn't work for this. This just happened to find you. You just happened to get turned into this superpowered person. You didn't earn it. You didn't work for it. You just got it. And that's not fair. And he sees himself as a balance of fairness. So I'll be curious to find out why he killed the people before. Like, were they all supers as well? Or was there just something else where maybe he saw, like maybe some of them were CEOs that inherited a business from their parents or something along those lines, where he just sees people who didn't have to work to get to where they were in life. He sees them as, that's not fair. And I'm going to be the one that sets it right. I'm going to be the one that returns fairness to their lives because I'm going to take it away from them. But yeah, very interesting motivations there because of it. And him finding out that Eric was like allergic to him, and that whole scene where he would get close and all of a sudden blood started seeping out of Eric's eyes. It's pretty intense, and like the special effects they did for that was pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, that was really the only good part of the episode. The rest of it is just still not great. Still just kind of happening, and it's all part of the show, so I've got to watch all of it, but I'm at least watching it now with some interest to see what's going to happen with the Sallinger character. What's going to happen near the end of his story. I apologize if I'm stumbling over my words. It's like way past my bedtime right now. Shh, don't tell anyone. But yeah, just what's going to happen? How's his story going to end? I feel like it would be a little too cheap if they just killed him off. If Jessica or Trish just decided to kill him, because they've handled that situation for the past 2 seasons. Jessica killing Kilgrave in the first season, and then Trish killing Jessica's mom in the second season. So I feel like they're going to have to handle it a bit differently for the third season. You can't just kill him off. Jessica even says, I want to do this the right way. I want to put him away. So I kind of hope they find a good way to wrap up his story and not just a simple way. But all in all, that's about it for these 3 episodes. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What are your thoughts for these 3? Let me know. We could talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Jessica Jones reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.